Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Highruler, and today's video is going to be talking about the boss fights in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now, this seems to be a point of contention within the community, with a lot of people just saying they were okay, some enjoying them, and a lot of people feeling like they were very underwhelming. I'm actually going to fall into the camp that they were underwhelming because I didn't really feel like I enjoyed many aspects of these boss fights, and a lot of the mechanics seemingly were carried over, starting with the Flash. And it's funny because a lot of people were very up in arms when it came to the Flash boss fight before the game came out. Obviously, with the IGN preview and everything going on there, people were just very upset about everything to do with that boss fight. And frankly, I actually thought it was the most difficult boss fight. Now, whether that's because it was the first boss fight of the game and they're introducing you to the mechanics or what have you, it just really felt like that fight kind of raised the bar for what you were experiencing in the game, but then none of the other boss fights afterwards raised it from there. All the mechanics you learn for the boss fights really are set with that Flash one, and they're really not kind of improved upon, or they're not really kind of done any differently in the subsequent ones. So it really kind of feels disappointing when you play the Flash boss fight, then you go to the Green Lantern, Batman, and then Superman, and everything is just pretty much the same. And honestly, when it comes to probably the most interesting boss fight, at least visually and aesthetically, that would be the Green Lantern one. I think I would echo a lot of people's opinions here that the Green Lantern boss fight was actually probably one of the best ones, just from everything going on, the visuals of it. And personally, I don't know how many guys would agree with this, but the Batman boss fight was probably the most disappointing. It really does seem like that boss fight just didn't really work, and the reason for that is that it starts with obviously mixing the fear toxin, and you're walking around, you're wondering what's going to jump at you, and it really does set the stage for this very creepy, very spooky boss fight. And then you get into the actual boss fight with the fear toxin Batman, and he's very big, and it felt like playing the Claw Raid almost for my Marvel's Avengers people. And you kind of have a few different things going on there, but it's all very easy. It's nothing different, and it really does feel like they could have done something more with the Batman boss fight at least. I can understand people being like, everything that happened with Batman, and that's the boss fight you get. It really just doesn't seem all that satisfying when you play it. And then moving into the Superman boss fight just feels like everything you've done before. It doesn't feel like it's taken anything different. It's always about the counter. It's always about disabling the AoEs. And there's never really anything different from these boss fights. And honestly, it really does feel a tad disappointing because you obviously want to play against the Justice League. You obviously want to kill the Justice League, but you want that to be in a satisfying way. And these boss fights do feel a little underwhelming, and it doesn't really feel satisfying when you get to the end of them because it really doesn't feel like you've done a whole lot. I really wish these boss fights had second phases or different mechanics or something different that really tie them all together. The one thing I will give them credit for is that the Batman boss fight aesthetically, when it comes to the boss arena itself, that is very visually pleasing, right? So in terms of the overall look of that boss arena and everything going on there, it does look very scary. It does look very different. And even if the mechanics are the same, which they are, of course, because you play against a big Green Lantern in the previous boss fight, at least aesthetically and at least visually, there is something there to make you go, ooh, this looks very cool. But it really does feel a tad disappointing. I really am kind of up in arms a little bit about kind of the quality of those boss fights. I'm not expecting anything like an Elden Ring, for example, where these are going to be the most meticulous, difficult, very challenging boss fights. But obviously, a couple new mechanics per boss fight I think would be fair. Something to kind of throw in a different ingredient into the formula, and just something to keep you on your toes. It really does feel like the Flash's boss fight, and then going into the Brainiac Flash boss fight once you kind of beat Superman, it really does feel like those are the most difficult ones. And honestly, it kind of makes me worried a little bit for the quality of the Green Lantern and Superman boss fights that's coming out with season 1, because I can understand, obviously, Brainiac is going to take those powers and use them. And honestly, like I said, the Green Lantern one was probably the most aesthetically pleasing boss fight. But whether that's the arena we fight them in or whether they can do some new mechanics with these boss fights, I really appreciate them being able to freshen this experience up in hopes that, honestly, we get something a little bit different and a little bit better. And honestly, that's probably my biggest complaint about the game right now. Obviously, I can't really play 100%. If you guys saw the previous video where I'm having an issue, that's probably the overall biggest thing going on in the game right now. But when it comes to my experience with the in-game content and experiencing that content, I think the boss fights weren't really what I needed them to be or what I wanted them to be. And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that I have right now with this game is that if I have to go back and play those boss fights at any point in time, I'm not really going to feel an enjoyed sense of like, oh, I got to go do this. I got to play this boss fight. It just doesn't really give that to me. But let me know in the comments how you guys feel. Did you guys enjoy those boss fights? Did you guys enjoy killing the Justice League? Let me know, because I might be the only one here who feels a little underwhelmed by all the boss fights. It seems like some people feel like this boss fight did good and this one didn't do so hot. So let me know, and I can't wait to speak more about Suicide Squad with you guys in the upcoming days, weeks, and months. If you guys want to follow along with that content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a nice little comment, and I'll see you guys the next time here on the channel. As always, enjoy the rest of your evening, night. Take care, yourselves. Later, guys.